Before I begin, how many of you have ever lied? यहाँ पे कितने लोगों ने कभी झूठ बोला है? घोर कलयुग. The point is what you do when you speak a lie. You speak another lie, and then another, and then another. So you keep on speaking lies until and unless you frame a story around your lie, which is easily sold to your listener. Right? So remember when you were like really young, you used to go cycling, have races with your friends, and one fine day used to fall down while racing and used to come back home and tell your mother that I fell down because a puppy ran into me and not because we were racing. So the stories are very important, and we all have been storyteller all through our life. It's just that we don't realize the power of stories. And today I'm just going to talk about how powerful these stories are and make you guys realize how important it is to tell stories. So before we start, so there are some facts which I think we all are smart people, we all should be able to answer. We must be coming across them very often. So 10th Prime Minister of India, value of pi, when was the Battle of Plassey fought, etc., etc. And I'm sure you would have got it, right? No. So, okay. Now what about these stories? These were some stories which were taught to us like when we were really small toddlers. Three Little Pigs, story of that thirsty crow, etc., etc. But these are the stories I'm sure you wouldn't be remembering. No, you remember them all. So why this different behavior? You don't remember things which you should, but you remember things which were taught like really back, and you still remember them. The thing is that they were all taught in form of stories, and the facts were not taught to us in form of stories. We remember the stories, we remember the information when it is given to us in form of mesh of information, and we don't remember the facts when they are provided to us in isolated form. So I'll tell you a story about Howard Schultz. So there was a small little guy in the town of Brooklyn. His name was Howard. So he belonged to a not so well-to-do family, and none of his family members were ever educated. They were really weak financially. But he wanted to go for education. He knew that education was the way forward. He had one little thing which none of his family members had. He was good at football. Using his football skills, he got a scholarship from University of Michigan and ended up studying there. After studying there, he got a job like all of us. And then he switched some of the jobs and finally landed up in a company named Hammerplast, which used to make coffee makers at that point in time. So when in that company, he was in the position of sales director. He saw a lot of sales coming from this small little store in Seattle. So he thought, why not I make a visit there and see what's happening. He went there, and he fell in love with that whole place. He fell in love with the culture of that company. He fell in love with the way the owners used to take all the pain and weave out beans and then serve it to the customers. So he thought, this is the place where I would like to work. And then he spent one whole year convincing the owners to hire him. And they hired. Post that, once he was in Hammerplast, he saw that there was a lot of demand for coffee makers coming from Italy. He thought, why not I make a visit to Italy? He went there and he was completely confused. There were coffee shops at every nook and corner of Italy. He thought, how can Italians be so crazy? They are drinking so much coffee. Is it even possible humanly? But it was. Later he understood that actually it was a home away from home. These coffee houses were a place where oldies used to hang out, where youngsters used to come and plan their outings, where families used to hang out. So he thought that he had stepped into a gold mine. He went back, he told his owners that this is an idea which I would like you all to invest into. And the owner said, thank you, but no thank you. We are not going to invest into your idea just for the heck of it. We are totally happy doing what we are doing. Heartbroken as he was, he resigned from Starbucks. He went down the lane and opened a coffee house named Giornali. He came back and bought Starbucks. So the store I was talking about was Starbucks in Seattle. He came back and bought Starbucks for $3.4 million. Now there's one small little thing which Howard always say, which I think is the success of that particular guy. He says, Starbucks is not into coffee business serving people. He says Starbucks is into people business, and it so happens that we are serving coffee. Today, we all are living into this people business. Day in and day out, we are interacting with people. As a manager, as a sales guy, as an interviewer, as an interviewee, etc., etc., we all are into this people business. And hence, it is very important for us to interact with people. And stories can help you do that. Because facts tell, but stories sell. So how many of you have actually heard about Ramchandra ji and Krishna Bhagwan from Ramayana and Mahabharata? All of you, right? But how many of you have actually met them? So the question is, how do you know about them if you haven't met them? Or maybe someone in your family met them? No. But these all things are stories which have been passing on from one generation to another generation. Maybe they were no Ram and no Krishna. They were just fictional characters created so that certain ideologies were given to youngsters, given to the next generations. So what's the story? Actually, story is a sequence of events which starts when an event happens which throws your life off balance. So in case of Ramayana, story was created when Lakshman chopped off nose of Shuknakha. In case of Mahabharata, story was created when Draupadi laughed when Duryodhan stepped onto a puddle of water. In case of Thirsty Crow, a story was created when the crow couldn't find water. So that's when a story is created. And stories are powerful. So talking about this multi-touch technology which iPhone came up with, there was this technology which existed long back. It was not a new thing which Steve Jobs or Apple invented. But Steve Jobs just came on board, bought Fingerworks, and sold a story to the audience around multi-touch technology. And that story was so powerful that it did not even help Apple master its sales and succeed. It killed a whole big giant like Nokia. Then coming on to Napster. Sean Fanning's co-founder of Napster told a story around his software which was peer-to-peer file sharing. He told the story that music isn't bought. He told the story that music is always shared, and we bought that story. Today, we buy books, we buy movies, but we never buy music. So now, I would like to talk about various things which storytellers often use while communicating with the audience. They often, I'll give you some tips to success mantras of storytellers, and I would like to take reference of Steve Jobs, who is, I think, the biggest storyteller of our times. So the first thing is you should give bigger picture before details. Whenever you are going to present something, maybe it is a sales pitch, maybe it is a paper, a presentation, or an examination paper, you should give the bigger picture before details, because people are not looking forward to the details which you are capturing in there. People are looking forward to a bigger thing. People are looking forward to how much trust or belief you have in your own idea. So when Steve Jobs came on board to present the audience MacBook Air, he didn't talk about how thin it was. He didn't talk about how light it was. He didn't talk about the processor speed it had. He just pulled it out of an envelope and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, here I present you the thinnest notebook in the world." And that's what people were looking forward to. They never wanted to know what all things can a laptop. They already knew what all things a laptop can do. They only wanted to see how thin it was, because that was the selling point. So big picture before details. Then, as an engineer, as an MBA, as a human, we are so much into numbers. We just want to talk about numbers that we forget the whole thing around it. People today are up to eyeballs with numbers. They don't want more numbers. They want to see what help can you provide to them through a particular product. So when iPod was launched by Apple, Steve Jobs just came on board, and instead of telling that this device now has 2 GB of storage data, etc., he just said this device now can carry 1,000 songs in your pocket. So that's what people were interested in. That's what the whole thing people wanted to hear. Then coming on to the third thing, which is very important, that you should highlight a problem before offering a solution. No matter how big invention you have done, no matter how good a technology is, people only want to know how can that technology help them. Even if a technology is going to leapfrog mankind by a decade, it does not interest me. It does not interest me as an audience. I want to know how it can solve a problem of mine. So Steve Jobs came on board with iPhone when iPhone was being presented, and he talked about the QWERTY keypad. He made the audience realize how bad that QWERTY keypad was and what all problems they were facing because of that. People were actually very happy using Nokia QWERTY keypads until and unless Steve Jobs told them how bad it is for them to use that. And then he introduced iPhone. So before introducing iPhone, he talked about the problem which they were suffering. And then by iPhone, he introduced the solution. The big thing here is you should know how to create a story. Stories are present all around you. Just you have to look here and there, and they are there. You must know how you can unite your facts with emotions, because that's when you create the maximum impact on audience. That's when you actually bridge the gap between the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the brain, and hence make the maximum impact. So when Steve Jobs came on board and started talking about iPhone before the launch, he just told them story of how Apple had changed the history of computing, then history of music industry, and hence they were the right fit to change the history of telephony as such. So Rudyard Kipling once said that if history was taught in form of stories, it will never be forgotten. And I took it a bit seriously. So I started teaching maths in form of story. So for my students, when I am teaching maths, trigonometry is not sine theta, cos theta, tan theta. Trigonometry is much more than that. Trigonometry is more of a story of how sine theta and cos theta met to form tan theta. And Pythagoras theorem no longer is side square plus side square is equal to hypotenuse square. It's more of combination of how these sides combine to form hypotenuse. Hence creating more impact on the students. And they don't forget these things. They don't forget these stories. So to end it all, I would like to say that as a writer reads voraciously to come up with new thoughts, an artist goes on in the nature to come up with various inspiration for the new work which he has to make. As a storyteller, we should be very alert and should be looking out for various stories which are going around us. Because these are the stories which we can use in our daily life. These are the stories which we can combine with various facts and emotions to form the maximum impact. And to end it, there's a saying which I would like to quote: what is truer than the truth? It's a story. If you can tell something in form of a story, likelihood of getting challenged is very less. That's it. Thank you.